Hello, and this is my tier list. The Pokemon mainline games. And while I have a tier here of games I never played, just to make it easier for me. And then also, this tier list is specifically on unmodded, no ROM hacks or anything. It's just the vanilla games. Because if it was like mod and all that, I don't think any game would be under like a C, probably. Or even under a B. Who knows? But, well, it's not. This is just unmodded. Well, to be fair, I never played Let's Go Pikachu unmodded, but I'm still gonna... I'll talk about that when we get there. Alright, well, Pokemon Yellow. The very first video game that like was my video game that I owned, and the very first Pokemon game. Yeah, I mean, to me, when I think about like nostalgia and the amount of fun I had, it's an A tier. I haven't actually gone back to play Pokemon Yellow since I was a child. I'm sure if I went back to play it, I mean, the problems that I have with, because I did go back and play like Gold, for example, would come forward even more problems. But I haven't done that. And, this is just because I love the setting of Yellow. I like that you start off with a Pikachu. It just felt... And when I think about it, it feels different, right? So, yeah, for now, it's an A tier. We'll see. Let's see. Pokemon Gold. Yeah. The original one. I did not play it when it came out, but I did go back to replay it. And it's a D tier. It really exemplifies the problems with Johto. Because I actually like Johto when it comes to like the setting and all that. I like that it's like a less technological Kanto, basically. It's a bit more mystical. Like the atmosphere and everything, Johto, great. The problem with Johto is the gameplay to me. The level curve, especially when you get to the mid-game, is horrifically bad and boring. Like, you're so over-leveled even if you don't try to. The Team Rocket part of the game is such a slog. It's horrific. And then these gym leaders, I don't like that they basically don't use any Johto Pokemon. They're basically just Kanto gym leaders, and I don't like the Pokemon that they use. I don't like pretty much anything. I mean, I'm trying to think, like, when it comes to the base game, is there any gym leader that I'm like, oh, that was a fun fight? I mean, I guess the last gym leader, and maybe even, the Dragon gym leader and the Steel gym leader, I guess. So 2 out of 6. 2 out of 6, 2 out of 8. So that's my problem with Johto. Now, if we talk about ROM hacks and all that, I think Johto would be up in A tier. Because the problems with the Johto are very easily fixed. Even if you don't do like a huge overhaul, even if you just change the level curve and the Pokemon used by everyone, and maybe like the Pokemon that you can catch, just add more. Because that's also one problem with Johto. A lot of the cool Johto Pokemon you can't even capture in Johto. They're like post-game and you capture them in Kanto. And the thought is very cool of being able to travel back to Kanto. But the Kanto guys are weaker than the Elite Four that you just battled, right? So it's kind of like, it's so easy. I mean, even when I was a child, when I played Crystal, I was kind of like, man, I was struggling a little bit with yellow, and then with crystal, I was kind of like, man, what's going on? I didn't even like that part, the gameplay, when I was a child. But crystal is better than gold. The changes that they made and the little what's called story changes. It's good. I mean, it's just an enhanced and better version of gold, but it still suffers from the same mistakes as gold. So the criticism I had of gold, they're the same for crystal, but not as bad. So that's why it's C. And I've never played these two games specifically modded. It's specifically Heart Gold and Heart Soul Silver I played modded, but I'm sure it's the same. Alright. Ruby. Probably a B. If I am to be fair here. I want to put it A, but no, it's a B tier. I think it's just a straight upgrade of both of these games, actually, which is why I think I had rated this one too high. But oh man, I mean, it's just a fun game. So maybe I'll put Ruby in A and below Yellow, even though I do think, objectively speaking, the game is better than Yellow. But I love Hoenn. Hoenn is my favorite region. I love that there's new Pokemon everywhere. And I actually like the story. Even though I don't tend to pay a lot of attention to the Pokemon stories. Especially in the newer games because of just how long it is. But I think they did a good job with Ruby. With Gen 3. With the... what's it called? With the... God, I don't remember what that trio is called. I mean, I know they're called Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. I don't know what the trio is called together. What specific, like the legendary birds, legendary dogs. I don't remember. But I actually liked how that story worked out. I just love the Pokemon selections. In my mind, there is not a single bad Gen 3 Pokemon. I have like some criticism of certain Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon, but overall I actually like a lot of the selections that you have. In my mind, I'm trying to think, is there any Gen 3 Pokemon that I despise? And nothing pops up in my mind. So, great game. Now, Emerald. Everything I said about Gen 3 just skyrocketed. Emerald might have ruined all the other Pokemon games because of how big of an improvement it was over the base games. And it's like an amazing game at all. More double battles. Oh yeah, double battles is my favorite in-game, like against the NPCs. Battle format. I love double battles. I love them. I don't like double battles when playing against humans, but I love it in game. And I want more double battles in games. But yeah, I mean, Emerald. Oh yeah, also with Emerald, with the Battle Factory, the post game is amazing. The Battle Factory is such a good thing. The fact that a game here didn't have it. Yeah, I don't know, like the third game when Pokemon used to make like the 2 games and then a third enhanced edition. I would always get the enhanced edition when I was a child. The first non-enhanced game I got was Ruby. And if I were to go back then, be like, just get Emeralds. Just wait a year, which I wasn't able to do back then, for Emeralds. But I mean, I say that I had a great time with Ruby, so yeah, it's just amazing, amazing. Now, Fire Red and Leaf Green, I actually think they are a B tier game. They are probably, objectively speaking, I think better than Yellow. Because I mean they're running on the Gen 3. They have the abilities and everything. But I don't know, like I mean when it comes to this tier list, think about the fact that Pokemon Yellow is being ranked higher than it probably should because of nostalgia, and it was my first ever, like my own video game, and the very first Pokemon game I ever had. So it gets a lot of like points for that. But Fire Red I think is slightly worse than Ruby. I mean, it's kind of like on the same level as Ruby, but it's in Kanto compared to compared to Hoenn. And I prefer Hoenn over, that, over Kanto. I love Kanto, but, out of those two, I think I will go Hoenn all day, every day. Pokemon Pearl, well, I think it's a C tier. Oh, no, it's not C tier because I actually think it's a good game. It is a B tier game, but below Fire Red. The best thing about this game, like one thing that's great, is that they now split physical and special moves. In all the other games, the moves were based on the typing. So all fire moves were special, like all dark type moves were special, and all ghost type moves were physical. But in this game, it is no longer based on typing, it's based off the actual move itself, which I think was such a good thing. A lot of Pokemon in these games that might have been like, oh god, like not as fun to use if they had that physical special split, which I do think they were planning on adding to Gen 3, but they didn't for some reason. But I do think they were planning on doing that if you look at the type of Pokemon that were in the game. But they didn't. But they did that in Generation 4, and that was a great thing. The reason why I'm not talking a lot about Pearl is the fact that Platinum is just a huge improvement over it. Yeah, I mean, Pokemon Platinum is an amazing game. Probably my second favorite game, Pokemon game of all time after Emerald. It doesn't reach S tier because I think that's like just for Emerald. But it is so good that it breaks like the nostalgia goggles of Pokemon Yellow. Sinnoh is an amazing region. And I think it also helped that I actually really, really loved the Sinnoh and also, the Hoenn show. I think Generation Hoenn and Sinnoh, when it comes to the show, are like the best of the Ashime, of like the Ash part. I actually really love Horizon at the moment. But about Platinum, it's just a huge upgrade over Pearl. I mean, I don't really remember all the differences they made. But I mean, I was so actually, it's the Pokemon game that I was invested in the story the most. Actually, like when it comes to the bad guy team, I actually think not Plasma, yeah, right. Okay, sorry. The evil team with Cyrus, Mars, Jupiter, and oh god, what's the guy called? I don't remember his name, but I love it. I think it has the best story, the best evil team. I think the level curve is great. I like all the different places. The selection of Pokemon is a lot better. The problem with Pearl and all that is the fact that, and why Pearl cannot be higher than Fire Red, is I think the Pokemon selection is pretty poor. Especially if you want like a fire type Pokemon. You only have the option of Ponyta and this if you and Chimchar, which is a starter Pokemon. So if you don't, which to be fair, it's not enough. I mean, I think the starter Pokemon are also really good. So far in all these games, I think all the starter Pokemon have been pretty good. I mean, I guess Johto to me is like maybe also why it ranks a little bit lower. Is the fact that the only real starter Pokemon that I like when it comes to like the final evolution is actually the fire one, Cyndaquil. The other ones, I love Totodile. I don't really care about the other two. And actually like Bayleaf. I love Bayleaf. And its evolution, which is now escaping my mind. I'm recording this pretty late. I woke up, took a shower, and before I was planning on going to bed, I was like, you know what? Let's make this video. I was planning on writing out a little bit of a script for this, but I didn't, and that's why this has taken days. A lot longer to get out than I was planning. Because I was planning on writing a script, and that just delayed this. Let's see. Soul Silver. Soul Silver I put right here. I think it's an actual Johto game that I enjoyed playing. And I don't think it's just because of the little thing that you got, the little Pokemon step counter that you got. I remember playing with that a lot, having fun just putting it in when going to school and being with my Pokemon. Like maybe a Tamagotchi in a sense, but not really. It was just a step counter, I think. But I remember having a lot of fun with that game. Improved version of Crystal, I would say. I mean, it's a bit different than both of these games because it uses some of the things from Crystal and adds it to the Gen 2 games, and it's just an improvement in everything except the levels, all that's why if they would have done a little bit more improvements when in combating like the level curves and all that, I actually think it might have been here, but they didn't. Pokemon Black, probably right there. I like the region, Unova, I think it's called. I like that it's all new Pokemon, like it's completely new. They basically try to do like a soft reset on the game. I think the actual gameplay is great. I like the areas. But I don't have much more to say because here comes White 2, which I think is just a better version. And I'm gonna put it right here. You know what? It's probably something closer to this right here, I'd say. Now, White 2. I loved when it first came out, I was like, oh god. It's called White 2, so it's just... And this is when they started making so that there wasn't a third game. I was thinking like, black, white? Is it gonna be like a gray, which is kind of like, emerald, platinum, and we're gonna get a gray. It's gonna be amazing. But I actually think they did something better. They actually made a sequel to the games. So instead of just making an enhanced version, they actually made it be set a couple years after the original games. So you are like a new protagonist. You're still in the same world, but you're playing it from a different perspective, a different story, things that change in the world. It was such a cool idea that they never did again. To be fair, I would say it like that actually. I had a lot of fun with White 2. And I loved just what they did. That's just how it is. You know what? It probably... No, I think it's like that. It's an 8-tier game, but I don't think I had as much fun with it as Platinum and all that. So even though these are just these two, these games, but increased a lot. So this is a completely new game. It still misses some charm. And I love the sprite. The animated sprite works. I mean, obviously, I think the Pokemon Company put a lot of love into Gen 5. And it didn't do so well, which they might go like, alright, let's not put love into our games anymore. But Game Freak, I like these games. I see the work you put into them. Alright, Pokemon Y. Right there. It's a game I enjoyed. I actually like the setting. I think Kalos is pretty cool. But this is, to me, is where the start of the decline happened. They stopped with the sprites. They went into 3D. And to be fair, I think the 3D actually looks pretty good in Pokemon X and Y. But I don't know, the game didn't really feel like finished. And it was kind of like, alright, I see what you're doing here. And if... you know what? Yeah, and if... it probably still is like that. It's like bordering maybe on C. Yeah, I would say it probably is a C game. The more I'm thinking about it, like... it's C. It's like, just an average game. I don't like that you couldn't turn off the experience share. That was forced on you. You had to have it on all the time. And the game was very, very easy, very handholdily. It was a lot of like Kanto wanking. It was just a very boring experience. I did not like any of your rivals. Didn't care for the story. Didn't care for the bad guys. I don't know. This to me was like the start of the decline of Pokemon. Even though I do think they introduced my favorite gimmick, the only gimmick that I would say is great, which is Mega Evolutions, amazing. But that gimmick doesn't elevate the game. Maybe it elevates it over Crystal. But, I don't know. Yeah, it's just not very good. Now, Pokemon Sun, F tier. An F tier game. The removal of the game looks great. Actually, I really like the Hawaii setting and the island hopping and all that. Pretty cool. But that's where the positives end for me. And I think the Pokemon look pretty cool as well. But I hate that it's like the whole first island is like a tutorial. I hate the cutscenes. I hate that it takes like 20 hours to actually finally get into the game. And the game is like, I wouldn't be surprised if like 30 to 40% just cutscenes and just talking and just fuck me. The only redeeming grace I guess is like Team Skull. I actually like Team Skull. Guzma, I like them. They're fun bad guys. That's pretty much it. And also, I mean, I like the character designs. I would say that Olivia, 10 out of 10. I love her. I mean, I really like Olivia, but I didn't really like the Kahuna and like the island trials. The Pokemon trials. They could have been fun if they were a bit harder, but now Ultra Sun, D tier. They are better than Sun and Moon, but man, do they feel phoned in. They're like the exact same game almost. It's not like, if they would have done like what Y2 and all that did, I would have been more okay with it. Because kind of, you know what, it's set 2 years after, the fact that they released Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I was thinking, okay, then they're doing exactly what they did with Gen 5 when they released 2 new games. Nope, it's the exact same game, just a little bit more difficult. And with more cutscenes, I don't know, like but it is objectively, I think, better. It's probably like that, maybe. I know. I mean, it's so infuriating. I don't even want to talk about it, so it's an F tier. Pokemon, let's go Pikachu. I mean, I've not played the game by itself, but I do know. But I mean, I'm at the moment I'm doing I'm streaming my Let's Go Peerless Pikachu, which is a mod of Let's Go Pikachu. So the battling and all that is probably completely different for me than what you would normally get. But when I play the game, I can tell that okay, it's basically yellow. That's what the normal game would be like. It's like an yellow remake, which is great. So it's not just a Kanto remake. It's a yellow Kanto remake. I like that it's a remake that's different. It's not like a Shiny Pearl and Brilliant Diamond, because if I had played those games, they would have been down here. I'm just probably like in D tier. I'm just saying. It looks great. I think Let's Go Pikachu is the best looking Pokemon game, especially if you think about the 3D era where there's not sprites. It's amazing. I love that you can ride on your Pokemon. You can have your Pokemon out. You can ride on them. It feels like there's a ton of love put into this game. So the Peerless Pikachu game I'm playing, I would put it in B tier, with the mod that I'm playing with. But I'm thinking here, remove the mod, and then it would just be, the Pikachu one. It would be very easy, So I think it's like at the top of C tier. That's it. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I played Omega Ruby. Never finished it. But I think it is up here. I mean, it's Ruby. But with a special physical split and a little bit, I don't know, it's just Ruby. What can I say? The fact that they didn't include the battle, like a lot of things from Emerald, like if they would have done what they did with Soul Silver, if they had made an upgrade to Ruby in the vein of Soul Silver, then it probably would have been up here. I'm just saying, but they didn't. And I actually never really got to the end game with like the Primal Groudons and all that storyline. I haven't actually played the game far enough to get there. So the fact that I actually haven't finished that game, maybe I should put it right here. I had fun, but I don't know, like when I played it, I was kind of like, I might as well just play Emerald. Why am I playing this game when I can play Emerald? So I stopped playing. Pokemon Sword. I did a Let's Play of Pokemon Sword. And probably a C tier. I'll probably put it right. You know, the more I'm thinking, like something like that's probably. Yeah, I think this actually looks better to me. Pokemon Sword is a. God, I think I really despised the actual. Like, I think the gym leaders and all that, I had a lot of fun battling the gym leaders. And the actual, like, main battle guys, I thought was pretty good. I think they provided you with a good enough challenge, especially with the fact that you could if you use more than just one team, you could easily prevent yourself from becoming over-leveled, and the fact that you can just switch teams whenever, you know. If you could do that in Pokemon Y, it would be a boost to that game because the experience share is always on. You know, it's always on in Pokemon Y, in Pokemon Sword as well, but you can very easily switch out your Pokemon without going to a Pokemon Center and all that. So it's a lot more convenient having more than just one team. And yeah. But I despise the story. It has the same problem as all the modern Pokemon games. Too much cutscenes, too much like, oh god, I don't care about this. Skip, come on. Press. But it's not on the level of, you know, the Sun and Moon games, where it's like probably like 30 to 40, 25 to 40% of the game. In this one, it's probably like 15 to 20% of the game. You know, probably like 20 to 25%. And I hate that when you get to the so-called Elite Four, you're doing, you know, the tournament, and it's just, they decide, okay, now we're gonna add in the story, and you're like, oh god, I was having so much fun battling this tournament, and it's just getting cut off all the time. They cut it off like 3 times, I think, 2 or 3 times. And by that time, when I was gonna battle Leon, I was kind of like, oh god, just get this over with. Are you gonna break it up? Like, before we get to see the final Pokemon, is something gonna happen? I had a horrific time. Like, the game ended horrific. And I also think anything that wasn't the gyms, I had a boring time with. But you know, because of that, it's D tier. Because the more I'm talking about it, like, anything that wasn't the gyms, I had a horrific time with. Very boring. And they completely fumbled the, like, Elite Four tournament thing and the champion battle. No. Even though I think those battles were pretty fun, but what you needed to do when you get there and all that, horrific. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I also did a Let's Play of this, in the same vein as my Pokemon Sword Let's Play. I did not care at all for the open worlds aspects. I mean, I thought it was pretty fun having your Pokemon out, and then your Pokemon just how you battled wild Pokemon very easily in that game. You just throw your Pokemon out, and then they just battle. I like that. That's actually pretty fun. But I think if you're gonna do this Pokemon battle thing, you really need to make it so that you can battle the gym leaders in pretty much any way, and the gym leaders will scale to your level. So maybe like the the Pokemon that they use and the level that they use them at changes depending on how many badges you have. So I think what they should have done is that every single gym leader has 8 different teams depending on when you battle them. Are they your first gym battle, or are they your last? And depending on how many badges you have, their team changes, their level changes. If they would have done that, great, but they didn't, so no. And that is everything. God. I think this became more just... It wasn't as structured as I wanted it to be, but I don't know. If I'm gonna try and structure this, I would never get it out. I would never have done it. Because, probably had 5 days that I was planning on doing it, and I didn't because I didn't have a script. So yeah, there we go. I probably am not explaining myself the way I would have wanted, and it's probably very rambly, I don't know, but yeah, it is what it is, right? Fuck me.